Okay, so we are going to be replacing the back leg on this Evo 2, and I'll show you. You can see it's been flying on a repair. That's a fiberglass resin that I used. And that's held up nicely, and it can probably just leave that alone and not fix it, but for safety reasons and just my own personal preference, I would rather have a new leg. So we have a new leg here, and we're gonna install that for you today. So hopefully everything's bright enough, and you can see I've got it nice and close here. So first thing you want to do is take off your props, get those out of the way. And then if you have your SD card in it, you want to make sure you remove the SD card. Take out your SD card. Because when you separate the body, if that SD card's in there, the body's not going to want to come off. So first, let's just flip it over. And the tools you're going to need are a small Phillips screwdriver. You can see I got a double aught, and then a number 6 Torx. I think you can see that. And then I have a little pry tool here, and I have tweezers. So you're going to want to remove all the screws first, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the camera out of here. So you're going to take your number 6 Torx, remove these two. My hands will get in the way, but I think this is probably the best view for you. So remove 2 screws. Just take this, put it aside. And how you put your tools, how you keep your tools and your parts, your screws and all that, that's up to you, but you do want to be organized in how you place them. So now 2 small Phillips screws, very, very small. What I do is I keep my screws with the parts that came off with them. So I'm keeping all these parts right here as one. Take this little plate, put it aside, and then remove the camera. Now when you remove this camera, it's very simple, but you want to be careful with this. I like to use something to pry it, and my pry tool is a little bit too big, so I simply just take a very tiny screwdriver, put it on the corner, and flip it right out. And then take the camera out. So we're removing the camera. Have that all out of the way. Now we need to go ahead and take these off. Your back sensors, these just unscrew. And there's a lot of hidden screws in this thing, so this is only the second time I've taken one apart, so you got to bear with me. But we're going to take all these screws out here, and I'll fast forward through this part. And then inside here, it's hard to see because it's black in there, but you can see there's a screw here and then one over here. So we're going to take those out. And then just double check, make sure I got them all. Because removing this, we do not want to crack anything. So now, any videos you've seen where people are taking these shells apart, it is not as easy as you would think it is. When you're looking at those videos, this is not as easy as it looks. These are snapped together pretty tight, and I'm going to start with the front. Just bend my legs down a little bit to get it to set nice and stable. And then I just want to pry. Now that part comes off easy, but actually the rest did come off. I just worked on one where it was very hard. So this one came apart nicely. So far, we're not done yet. There we go. So there's your bottom shell. So I lied to you. It comes off very easily. Some of them are very hard. The one I worked on, it felt like it was glued together. And but that wasn't mine. That was for somebody else. So here we're looking at the bottom. This is your sensors and everything. Now we need to get the top cover off. And then this is where you find the hidden screws. We have 2 screws on the sides that we have to replace next, and those are Phillips. So we're going to remove those. So now we have these sides out. And then we have in the front, we have 2 screws right here. And again, remember, this is only my second time doing this, so bear with me. Yeah, those screws are the same, so keeping all my cover screws together. And then what you want to do is you just want to kind of feel if there is any resistance anywhere when you're doing this, so you know if you've gotten all the screws out for that section. And I don't need to remove this front cover. So we have those. And then you'll find down in here, you're not going to be able to see it, but right down in here, there is 2 small screws. Yeah, it's black down in there and the screws are black, so you're not going to see it, but there's one here and there's one over here, so we're going to remove those. Okay, so there's another cover screw. And then in the back, you'll see we have one right here. You can see those. And one right here. We'll remove those. Right here in the nose. You have one here and one here. So you have this bracket, your sensor. I think it's just the bracket for the sensor. It might be the whole sensor. I think it's just the bracket. So again, what I did was I felt a little resistance. And they're not coming out. They're unscrewing, but they're not coming out. So that's where tweezers come in handy. Same type of screw. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and take that screw out. Put that aside with the body parts. There's 2 screws back here. Here's another shell just so I can make sure I got all my screws. We got the 4 in the back. We got all these here in the front. We got these hidden ones. There are no other screws. There's nothing else holding us on here. The only thing that holds you on is these sensors, and you kind of got to separate from them. So just keep trying to separate from them, because that's what's holding us in place. So you got to spread it as you try to get it off there. So just try this one side at a time here. Sorry guys, but I warned you. This is not easy. You feel like you're gonna break it, and you definitely don't want to do that when you're trying to fix it in the first place. Wow, they really did do this one good. This is the hardest part, I think. That's all free. There we go. So it's gotten past those. Just gotta press until it comes undone, and don't worry, you're not hurting anything. It just sounds like you are. So there we are. We are off. So that was tough. And I mainly make it tough because I just don't want to break it. So that's my shell, and this is somebody else's shell. So my top shell came off very hard. So just give you a look here. This is what she looks like naked. Very well built. And there's also a lot that you have to be careful of. So again, we are replacing this back leg. This is an easier leg because there's no antenna. The ones with the antennas, they're a little bit harder, and I'll have a video for you on how to do that leg as well. But the whole goal here is we want to take this cage off. We want to be able to take this cage off and get underneath this plate right here, because that's where everything wires. But in order to take this top cage off, you also have to undo some stuff from the bottom, if I recall. So let's go ahead and just focus here on the top first and take out all these tiny screws. But we're going to loosen this sensor up. So that's this sensor here, 2 screws. Now I'm going to move those screws over there. So that's what holds this sensor in place here, and I just want to lift it up. I just want to have it like that. So I can undo this plate, which is a small Phillips screwdriver. So you have all these screws here. So 6 screws hold that plate in place. That plate, what that does is it holds down the plugs for all these sensors. So we're going to undo these sensors now using our Torx. And you have 2 screws on the side there. And then we're going to break our plate loose here and slide it back, and you'll see it covers all these plugs. I'm going to leave these sensors on. I'm not taking them off, but I do need to unplug these here. So just get your fingernail under them or a pry tool, but you got to be very careful with your pry tools because you can end up hitting other electronics and doing damage. So we just want to get this ribbon cable down past the cage. So you got to just carefully unpeel that, bring it down. And it's a pretty good thick ribbon cable. It's not as fragile as you would think. So now we go to the other side and we have one ribbon cable. So that's this one here. And we're going to peel that one down. And just get it out of our way there. You want to unpeel the whole thing all the way, every bit of it, because it's attached to the board that you are going to be soldering your new leg to, and you need this to be free. If you don't undo this, chances are you're going to rip it. So undo it all the way and just let it dangle like that. So now we're going to take the screws out for this. These two are separate parts. The top cage is separate from this board, but there's a ribbon cable that goes underneath the two of them. So what we need to do is we have to undo this whole front just because of that one ribbon cable, because you can't get to it from inside here. But what it does is it goes right here, and then it goes down. It goes from here inside and then all the way underneath there. I think it's harder to undo it this way than to undo this front. So I'm going to undo this front and leave that intact. So now we need a Phillips head. This cover plate, which is also Phillips. So we want to undo our sensors, our front forward sensors here. So you just unsnap those and we're going to pull them aside like so. And there. You just want to get them away from the board here. And then this one here, your GPS is the one that you can leave alone. Yeah. So you can leave this one on. This is the one that runs all the way through into the bottom. Pretty sure. Let's look underneath here. Yeah. I'll show you when I get it off. So we're going to leave that one alone. And now we're going to flip it upside down. I'm going to set all this nice and safe, so when I set it upside down I don't harm anything. And if you like, you can put one of your screws back in to this plate here so it doesn't flop around, but I'm going to just leave it, flip it upside down. So now we have to take all the screws out for the cage. See them right here? There's 3 on each side, so I'm going to take those out. We're going to go down through this hole right here and get that one there. Come on, baby. There we go. And then you'll see the cage is lifted, but there's a clip here that is going to stop me from taking this screw out. So I just need to push that clip in. That clip holds that bottom plate in, so I'm just going to push it in enough to let that screw fall out. And it might not be unscrewed all the way, so make sure it's unscrewed all the way, but we are past the point of the clip and I can grab it. There we go. So now we'll go to the other side. We'll push that clip in. And now we can take this screw out. And I'll show you what that clip does, because we're going to have to remove it. Okay, so now we should be able to pull this whole top off with the cage. And and it does snap. It snaps here and here, so you're not going to break anything, but just be careful. Oh, I don't like the way these feel when you're doing it. I'm going to get a screwdriver. Okay, so that other ribbon cable I told you about, you can see now. It runs across here, and then it runs right there. Okay, so now we're just going to put this aside with all the screws that came with it. We're not done yet. We have to get into here now. That's where all the wiring is. So now we're going to remove these screws. Now, but when I crashed this and made my crash video, everybody warned me how hard this would be. I kind of figured it would be. Your quality quads are built very well, and then they are more difficult to take apart. But I live for this. I love doing this stuff, so I wasn't worried about doing it, and it's been a while since that crash, and I'm finally getting around to fixing it because I'm fixing everybody else's quads. I've got one other person's Evo 2 for a front broken leg, which you'll see in a video, and then I have a broken top sensor, so I'll do that in a video as well. So if you're new to my channel and you want to make sure you have a good channel for Autel Evo 2 repairs, you found it. So here on the side we have little clips now that hold this in place. I have it all unscrewed, and there's just little plastic clips that you're going to press. So I'll try to do it right here where you can still see, but you're just going to press enough to get them to pop up. Let's start from the front, maybe that'll make it easier. And everything you do, it feels like you're going to break the quad, but don't worry. Just be careful, be smart, be careful. So I'm just pressing those up enough to get them clear, and then I'm going to just press them one at a time, slowly, till I get them all the way up. So now we're up, and I should be able to just hinge it like that, and there's that plate. Put it over here with the screws, and now we have all this wonderful goo to contend with. So this is where I'm going to fast forward, but I need to remove all of this, and the way I do it is I just pick it. You got to be very careful with your circuits, but this is the leg that we're replacing. So, well, let me just show you. The board comes loose now too, so this makes it easy for you to see. But here's my leg right here. We're replacing this leg, and then we need to unsolder, I think it's 3 wires here and then 3 wires here. This would be your LEDs, this would be your ESCs, and then your ESCs control your motors. So here's what I was telling you before. You want to be careful with this cable. You don't want to pry this out and hurt that cable, but that's as much as you need to pry the board, just to fish your wire through. So we're going to get this board all cleaned up, and then we'll move on to how to remove the leg. So we'll take a pause right here. It's not hard to remove. You just need patience, and you need to be careful. Once you get a portion of it, it usually just peels right off. But you're pretty safe here because there's no electronics. So I'm using a basically this is a scalpel that you use to do surgeries, but we are doing a surgery, so it's appropriate. Tweezers come in handy, fingernails, whatever works for you. But it does eventually come off. This one's got like, it's in a corner, so it's grabbing on. And then I can just take my knife and kind of score it carefully. So it breaks away from what it's holding on to. But you want to get it all off because you don't want to solder with that on there. So don't leave any of it behind, in other words, basically. I'll be putting something else back on in place here, but you can use silicone electrical, liquid electric tape. So there's my wires all exposed. These are nice, easy places to solder. These are a little tight, but still not hard places to solder. So we're all ready to go there. And I'll take a pause again and heat up the soldering iron. We'll get these wires undone, and then we'll detach the leg. Okay, so we have the soldering iron all ready, and just get yourself into a comfortable position to unsolder everything. And you know, for tinier wires, you can sit there with your tweezers and hold the wire while you heat it up. The board is not secure, so you don't want to be tugging on it too much when you're removing your wires, but we're going to just give it a little tug right there, and you want to have a good clean tip. Okay, see, not a burned up tip. So just make sure you're not hitting any other pieces of the quad, and heat up your solder there. Take the wire off. There's a little bit of red insulation left behind there. Now the yellow. You want to have a nice, you want to have a pretty decent soldering iron. You don't want to go cheap here and buy a $15 20-watt soldering iron, because that's just not going to work for you. This is a 60 watt, I think, maybe more, 80. Yeah, I think it's an 80 watt, I'm not sure. 70 watt. Right there, you can see it. So you want to make sure you have a good soldering iron, because you can completely ruin this job if you don't. So also, you want to take pictures. I didn't tell you that part. Your board is marked, so you see it right here. It says red, and then here it says yellow, and then black. But another thing you can do is simply take your phone, get a picture, and then remember your wire order by looking at the phone picture. So, sorry, I forgot to give you that little tip. I have the video to refer to, but everything is marked on the board too, so you're okay. Just got to pay attention. And I get a little shaky on these small ones. That one was a little tight. Oh, I see, they're stuck to the board with that goop. Okay. Now it should come off easier. There we go. So our wire is free. And again, the board, I think it's labeled for those too. No, it's not. Yeah, these ones are not labeled as to what color, so it is good that you make a note of it, or that you take a picture. But again, this one here, these three, just so you can look on the other side, yellow, yellow, black, black, red, red. Opposite on this side is going to be red, yellow, black. So you're good and safe there. And now we're going to take the leg off. Now this part I have not ever done before. So again, there's my repair. It's flown very well with that repair, but it's just, it's a safety concern. Especially flying out in the cold. It'll be a little more brittle. So I recognize this part here, and if it's anything of what I'm thinking, it's not going to be real fun because it's spring loaded. And putting them back together is usually a lot of fun. Taking it out, I think I just have to pry it up. Again, this is my first time doing this part, so bear with me. Yeah, see how it popped? It's spring loaded and it's real tight. Like I can't physically turn that with my hand. So putting that back in, I'll probably use a pair of needle nose, turn it and press it with my thumb, but we should be able to just slide that out. This is exactly the same thing you find, I think it's the same on the Mavics. The Xeno 2 has it, so keep all that together. And is that all that holds? Yep, that's all that holds that leg in place. So we're going to flip it over carefully here. And we're going to slide her out. And she's finally free of this broken leg. So to give you a little shot of my repair there, what I did is I crazy glued it back together, and then I used a tiny bit of fiberglass mesh inside there, and then I made fiberglass resin AB mix and put it around there, let it harden. And I mean, this baby it's not breaking, so that would have lasted a lifetime. That probably would have lasted another crash. And then we have the new one, and I'll put the link in the description where I purchased this one and the price and all that. But you'll save a lot of money if you do this repair yourself. And again, all you need is patience. All your wires are already spliced for you. So let's get her fed in there. So there's a slit here. You want to make sure you get this wire down in it. See this little slit? You want to get that wire down in there so it's flush right here. Hold that in place until you get it in. And now let's have fun putting that stupid joint back in. I hate these joints. So you want to make sure, if I remember correctly, on the other quads, you want to make sure you're fully open, and then put it back in. I'm not lined up. Okay. So now I've got it pressed down in there. Now I want to turn it. Let me get my needle nose. I have a pair of needle nose here that are angled that should work for this. But basically I'm just going to put them in like this. Now I can turn it, but you can see this thing is strong. So you want to be ready to press down and get it to lock in place. Let's try it like this. All you gotta do is get it over top and press with your thumb. Or you can be, maybe we can be quick enough to get that screw back in when we get it over top of that position. Let's try that. I've never ever liked this setup, but it's a good, reliable setup. I'm trying not to scratch up my quad too much here. Let's get it started. There we go. And just keep screwing it while I'm holding it there. Let's get the other one in. And you just want to make sure that it all falls back down flush, which it did. And we're in. So now just make sure that you've done it properly and it locks properly, and it does. Okay, so it's not too bad, but it's a little pain in the butt. I did pinch my poor little thumb here with the pliers and needle nose. Okay, now the fun part. Let's solder it all back together. Let's set this board in the way it's supposed to be. And I know I'm going to get comments. Let me show you. You want to be careful. Underneath here there's little rubber pieces on your board or on your studs down here. You want to make sure that they don't fall out like mine did. So you just put them back in place, but I'm going to set it aside. And one fell out and is missing, so I have to locate that wherever it fell. But I'll find that in a minute here after we solder everything. But yeah, you want to be careful because you've got those little rubber grommets and they might stick to the board or fall around. There it is right there. It's laying right there. So these little rubber grommets come off very easily. I call them grommets. They're dampeners. They protect your board when it's setting down here. So and then you can see we've already come unplugged on this side, so that's going to be fun getting that plugged back in, but it is what it is. So we're just setting this in place, and then we're going to solder everything back. And get our wires laid out. So this one actually is not going to be an easy one with these small wires just because of my angle. I'm gonna have to slide this board up a little bit, I think, to make it easier, or take the wire above. It would be easy if I didn't have to show it on camera, but I have to show you guys how to do it, so I want to be able to keep my hands in view at the same time. And it's just not that easy. See if I can get that wire to slide backwards to where these are closer. Okay, I'm going to pause and try to get this situated to where I can show you guys easily. Alright, so I have this set, so hopefully it is easy for you guys to see. It's not the best focus, but here's our 3 solder points there, and then we have 3 right here. And what I've done is I've run the wire kind of under the board because these wires are very short. And then that way, hopefully, I can get to the board. Yeah. And then solder it. Here's the problem. I'm a lefty, and I need to hold the soldering iron with my left hand, so we're gonna, since I also have to hold the wire and let you guys see it in camera, I'm gonna try to do this with my right hand. So bear with me. Hopefully I don't look too much like an amateur here. Yeah, this is hard. I don't want to mess this up, so let's stick with my left hand on the soldering iron and see if I can keep my right hand out of view. I enjoy doing this, but man, I couldn't do this every day for a living, building drones. I just can't stay on it. I'm shaking. Doing this in the morning after having coffee. This is where it takes patience, guys, because these three are the hardest. Might have to add some solder on there. There's plenty of solder on the board, so I don't like to gum it up, but I might have to add a little. Adding a little flux on them helps too. But your wires come coated already with a little bit of solder on them, and I left plenty behind on the board, so it should be good. I think I got it. Whew. Okay, so we got that one. So what color was it? It was yellow, black, red. Let's double check. Let me double check what our picture is here. Yep, yellow, black, red. So next is black. This is probably a good point for you guys to fast forward. I'm sure it's boring. People that know how to solder real good are probably laughing at me. I know how to solder really good too, but I'm trying to do this on camera and show you, and that always makes it harder. The angle is terrible. Oh, this is driving me crazy. I might have to pause this part and finish the soldering because I don't want to mess up my quad. This pulley's around the other side here. Okay, black. Let's get red out of the way. Okay. Try this again. Get the black down there. This is where I need a magnifying glass too. I think we got it. Okay, and red. Hey, look at that. It lined right up. Lined right up. Come on, baby. And good. So, always give a little tug on the wires there. Make sure they are definitely good and secure. And they are. So we're going to leave those ones alone, and now we're going to do these ones, red, yellow, black. So let's start with the one furthest away from me, which is the black. Always run your wires the easiest route they want to naturally go. This should be a lot easier because you have a bigger puddle to play with here. Problem is I can't get my board secure. I think yep, we're in standby. I got to reset the soldering iron. This cleans the tip. Just cleans all the goop off of it. Okay. Let me see if it's getting hot enough yet. After a while, it times out and goes into a standby, a lower heat. There we go. So this I'll just still use the tweezers so you can see. What I'm trying to do is use the tweezers to hold the wire and to secure the board. And it fell off to the side. Now, the wire is sitting right on top of the solder. It'll hold, but we don't want that. We want it in there. That's why I'm trying to press it down a little as well. It's definitely going to hold, but I'm not crazy about that one. I'll have to fix that one. So that's the black. Now we're going to do the yellow. What I'll do is I'll just add a little solder to those to be safe. These are huge puddles of solder. Yeah, see this one, I can move the puddle around and get that wire really in there. Red. I know I'm blocking, I'm sorry. To all you critics out there that are gonna criticize how I do things, I just have to tell you, how about you get a YouTube channel and you show us how to do this stuff? I don't have to do this. This one I got to clean up a little bit. It's got a rough spot. There we go. Yeah, I don't have to sit here and show you how to repair my own personal quad when I could have been done with this already. But I share it with you. I like to teach people things. So when you're being a critic, keep that in mind. Because I really don't care about your opinion on how I solder. Unless it's a helpful tip. But I definitely should have cleaned up my tip better. There we go. Got it. All right, so I'm not happy. I like this one. I like this one. I am just not happy with this one here. So I'm gonna play with cleaning this one up. I might pause it. Actually, that went real easy. All right, good and clean. And then I'm gonna clean my tip up here. And we're done soldering, so I can turn this off. Put it aside. And that's that. We are all back together with a nice new leg. I'm excited that I have a nice fresh leg again, because this happened early on when I got this quad. This was a gift. And it was very disappointing that it happened. But I'm I'm very happy to get it fixed. So let's get the wire situated. We got to get those little rubber grommets back in place. And I'll probably take a break and then come back to you. So yeah, let me do that. I'm gonna go get me a cup of coffee, and then we'll come back. We'll put those rubber grommets in place, set the board in place, and we'll probably do a fast forward on how to put it all back together. So let me zoom back out here. Okay, and we'll take a little break. We'll be right back. Okay, so let's put these little rubber grommets back in place. You're not going to be able to really see me here, but they go right there. The other one goes right there. And then let's cushion the board down on top of those. Now, if you remember, I unplugged the cable underneath the board on this side on accident. So since while I was paused, I had to undo this bottom board so I could reconnect it, because you have to have it connected to this board first. There's no way, once you secure that board, there's no way you can attach that cable. So we got everything out of the way. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this arm, because if you see the wire inside here, we want to make sure that is in our position for when it's being pulled, before we secure it into place, because there's a little secure area, a little, I don't know what you call it, a little piece of plastic that just kind of pinches it in place. And we're going to push that down onto it. And you can use a little force here, because it's got a shrink wrap over it, and you just don't want to stab directly into it. But squeeze that down in there, and it's nice and tight. So I know you can't see that, but right here's a little plastic piece, and then I squeeze the wire down between it, and then it just loops around. So now when I open the leg, see, there's no stress on that wire. It hinges perfectly. So let's go ahead and open that back up so we don't mess up my cables. Let's get everything laid back down. These front wires stay on top, and then the bottom wires, let me check my grommets. Yeah, and the bottom wires stay underneath, or the back wires stay underneath. So we have nothing pushing hard against us. We're nicely secured. And for those of you who are probably like, oh my God, why is he touching the board without gloves? Everything's coated. Everything is protected with it's basically a protectant. I don't know if it's the same type I use, but I need to go grab mine, but I'll show you what I use. Mine is basically just a waterproofing agent for electronics. So I've got everything laid out nice and neat, and I could put a little bit of a hot glue there. So maybe I'll put a little bit of some hot glue there, but it's mainly just to secure everything from, I guess, being tugged on and the insulation getting pulled back off of the wire, because these are so delicate. So maybe I will go ahead and just do hot glue instead of my waterproofing agent. So let's go ahead and heat up the hot glue gun. A little change of plan here. Okay, so on mine you can see I've hot glued that. It's all hardened. Got my grommets in place. Everything is secure. We want to make sure that's kind of centered up there. The wires are secure. And now we'll start putting her back together. Now I don't know how I'm going to do this part, if I'm just going to really fast forward a lot of it or what, but you can watch the video from the start again and know how to put it back together if you get stuck, or you can just keep watching, stick with me, as I put it all back together. Be very careful snapping all this in. Make sure I'm all lined up. This back one's the hardest. Alright, I don't like that. This frame pries out, so that's what you need it to do to get that to go in, but it's like I said at the beginning, it feels like you're breaking it. There we go. So everything is snapped. That's nice and secure. We want to put in our screws that came out of there. So those are all in. Everything looks good. My cable that came off earlier, it's in place, nice and secure from what it looks like. And everything's good on the bottom. Basically what I did is I had to take 1, 2, 3, 4 screws out, lift this board, plug in that cable that came undone after I plugged it into the original board it came out of. So now let's put our cage portion back on. If you remember, it's this one here. Now these little tabs right here and here snap onto the frame here, so it does make it a little difficult going back on. It's one of those things again where it feels like you might be breaking the quad and you're gonna fumble around with it. It's gonna make a liar out of me. Come on. One side's on. Okay, so this side is on. I got to get, I'm sure I'm messing this up on the camera. This side is on. I've got to get this piece behind and this piece on the outside, so that's what makes it difficult. Okay, got it. You just kind of want to keep a little force on it because it's going to want to pop back out. Let's get our ribbon cable. I haven't been paying attention to the camera, so hopefully everything has been good for you guys to view. And I'm going to go ahead and get a couple screws started because that cage is going to want to come apart. So let's just get a couple screws in it so we don't have to worry about it coming undone. So I put one screw in there and one screw right here just to hold it in place so it doesn't come undone while we get all this back on the front here. So for the front, let's plug everything back in. Always be very careful with these. You want to make sure you feel that they line up before you add pressure. And usually you'll hear them click, sometimes you don't. Get our little plate back on here. This goes in the front. And that goes on like that. And we want the black screws. Let me gather all the screws. And then the tiny, tiny, tiny 3 screws. Okay, let's go with the tiny ones first. And put this back on. And then 1, 2, 3 black Phillips screws. So now we want to put all this back together and then finish screwing in the rest of that cage. So let's go ahead and get this all back. We have all the cables undone. So what I'm going to do is get this out of the way a little bit here, and I'll show you the cables. We're just going to re-secure this cable the way it was. You want to make this cable nice and straight where it was, and it runs right up here just like that. And then we go under this sensor here. We'll leave it like that for now. Let's go to the other side and get these cables. So same thing. This one here, you want to be careful because it needs to go behind this part of the leg. So you want to bring it around before you try to stick it. Bring it up. Bring this one up. And then go behind the sensor. And then fold that down. Make sure it's secure. You can go back and check that later if you like. So here we are now, where we're just going to snap everything in place. And then we have this guy right here in the way. So you got to get behind it. And again, you want to feel that you're in place before you snap it, before you press down on it. And that one is really tight. I mean, hard to get to because of this. I think I'm there. Yeah. So that one's in. And then make sure it sticks here to the frame. And slide my finger down on the rest. And let's get this one in. That one's done. Press it down here. Make sure it sticks. And then once you do that, run your finger back down the side to take out any of the slack, because it makes like a little wave and comes undone. So now we're nice and secure here. Okay. Now the other side, same thing. Snap that one back in place. Press down here to make sure it's all stuck, and then run your finger down the side, and we're good to go. Always double check, even though we didn't unplug the other stuff, always double check your connections. Make sure everything is connected. Yeah, we're good to go. Okay. So now the center sensor, we can tighten that one back up. Make sure the little rubber grommet's in place. And all these screws, this one's longer and that one's longer. That's for the top sensor. So you have two longer ones, and then you have your short ones. The long ones go in the top here. Now the side ones for the sensor, this is the left sensor. All that's back together, ribbon cables in good spot. All this is back together, everything's snapped. Just double check your work, make sure everything's okay. Now let's finish putting these side screws in. Those of you who are still with me, I appreciate it. So that's all screwed back in place. All those screws. Check all your cables. Just go over everything. There is no rush to do this job. Just make sure you did everything nice and secure in putting it back. You can go back and double check, did I tighten up all my screws? Things like that. Now let's see if this top goes back on, or bottom, I'm sorry, if the bottom goes back on hard or easy. Now be very careful with this screen. You want to be extremely careful with that. That is very thin. So let's flip her over, line her up, line up your sensors, and then, actually, I'm sorry, no, we want the top first. That was the hard part because of these sensors here. So put this on and line up our sensors right here and here. I'm just going to bring it down slow. This side's close. Okay, I heard it. Yep. Now this side looks like it's in too. It goes back a lot easier than it comes off, that's for sure. Holy man. Let's put this back on before I forget to do that. I believe that goes like that. Nope. This goes like that. Because we have screw there, and there we go. Snap, snap. Now we're lined up. See? So everything just kind of snaps back in. You just want to go around and make sure it's all snapped. And now we can start putting all our screws back together. This is probably where you don't need to watch anymore. But we'll just start putting it back together. Spread my screws out. So we got these two screws in the back. Now let's put this top cover on. Remember, you just have to look at what snaps in. This is probably best to put this front in first. Nope, it's not going to. You have to line these up first, like, yeah. Then press that front in. Everything's snapping. Okay, back is snapped. Front is snapped. Everything is snapped. You want to make sure everything is fully snapped before you put your screws in, because if not, you might break something when you tighten your screws up. So let's start with the front here. We're on the home stretch, guys. All the screws there are back in. I have no screws left there. All I have left here is the camera and then these. Okay, this looks like something from Back to the Future. Okay, everything looks good. And let's put the camera back in place. So you drop the camera down in here. It's got these two little holes. They go into the front here, and you'll feel them fall into place. And then snap that back together. Like that. We are done. Everything is done. So I will pause right here get everything connected, fire it up, and just show you that it does work, that I am confident in my work and everything should be fine. Okay, so it says we're ready to go. Here's the leg that we replaced. And we want to see the front motors turn counterclockwise, and we want to see these turn clockwise. So let's turn it on. Yep. Working good. And the front's turning. Everything's good. We are good to go. One little note. I didn't know this. I wanted to show you guys. I went to go put the props back on and found out that you have to swap this part out. So when you switch your arms, don't throw your arms away because you need this part. They don't supply this on the new motors. So I'm glad that I did this before publishing the video. So just screw it back in place. Sorry if you can't see that. Tighten them down. Then you can take your prop, the correct prop, here's one, put it in place and lock it up. There we go. So hopefully this video was helpful for you to replace your back arm, and I am going to use the exact same video taking it apart, and then I will show you how to replace the front arm because I have somebody else's right here where I'm fixing a broken front arm. So I will also be showing you how to replace the sensors because I have to replace one of those as well on a an Evo 2. So there's more videos to come for how to do repairs on the Evo 2, and that's that. So hopefully this helps. Thank you guys for watching. If you've stuck it out throughout this whole video, God bless you. And give a thumbs up on your way out. And if you're new to my channel, hit subscribe, and as always hit the bell so you get future notification of all my content to come. Peace and love.